My name's Matthew Bowden, the Incorrigible Rogue, and today I am with Patricia Martinelli. Patricia, please tell everyone a little bit about yourself.
Oh, hi, I'm Patricia. Patricia Martinelli. I was a performer. Well, I probably still am in Covent Garden in the 80s, many years ago. I was an actress. I probably still am. I've been on television. I've done radio work.
Things keep falling out. Sorry for interrupting me. Things keep falling out. You carry on.
And at the moment, I'm painting. I'm a painter. I'm an artist. I have exhibitions and I sell my work.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you've had quite a full creative experience then.
Yeah, from one thing to the other. I'm not sure if I'm settled in what I'm doing at the minute. Probably not. I probably want to do other things still, but
fair enough.
So
why begin? Why go on this journey?
Why do this journey? Right. Do I start at the beginning here?
Yeah, please do. Or as early as you believe is relevant.
I think the earlier the better, because I loved painting. I loved art, but I loved performance as well. And I went to art school. I trained as an artist, and I trained as a teacher to paint. And I left Teachers Training College very early because I wanted to go into performance. So I left to go to London.
Okay.
And I started off by going to Laban Dance School, which was in London, Goldsmiths.
Okay.
So I wanted to do contemporary dance, which I absolutely love.
You went to do a course after doing a course. So you did your art course, you learned how to be a teacher, and then immediately went down and started doing your course.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
So I left. I went to college in Bognor Regis, which is brilliant.
Bognor. I went to Bognor.
It keeps going. Where does it keep going?
I'm having a little bit of trouble connecting stuff, but you just carry on, Patricia. It's all good from your end.
No, right. Okay. So I did not want to become an art teacher. So I left Bognor Regis and I went to London. And I went to Laban School of Dance. And I was influenced by a lot of dancers, by a lot of choreographers there. And then after that, I decided I wanted to go to drama school. So I was very much on my own. I went to London on my own. I thought, right, how am I going to deal with this? How am I going to deal with being in London? So I'll get a live-in job. So I got a job in a pub, and I lived in the pub and worked as a barmaid. And I went to the City Lit. I'm sure a lot of people know the City Lit. Do you know the City Lit? The City Lit.
I don't know.
It was a place where a lot of people went to do drama if they couldn't go to drama school. So I went there initially, but then eventually I got into ALRA, which was the Academy of Live Recorded Arts, which is drama school. But meanwhile,
So you were bouncing around a lot through these different institutions.
I was dancing around, and meanwhile I was working in this pub, and I was only in my 20s, very early 20s. I was very vulnerable, very young. So I got sacked from the pub because she thought I was a... Because she thought I was...
Just before we go on, Patricia, I'm really sorry to ask you this, but can we set this at a time frame? What year are we at?
Oh, right. Okay. So we're in the 80s, 70s, late 70s, 80s. So at the beginning of the 80s, I went to drama school. But before that, I had met Barry Grantham. Do we know Barry Grantham? Commedia dell'arte.
Please explain.
Yeah, so we did a lot of commedia. I did Commedia dell'arte with Barry Grantham.
Yep.
I would have done dance classes. I was doing everything that was involved with the performance, really.
And were you just trying to actively discover as much as you could? Was this essentially a journey of discovery?
As much as I could. Initially, I wanted to be a dancer, but when I got into drama school, I realized I enjoyed the theatre to the extent where it was so visual. Anybody dancing is visual, but I learned about playwrights. I learned about the absurdity of some of the plays, like Beckett, like Pirandello, and then there was the wonderful Brechtian kind of performances. So
And
I was doing
when you learn these things,
the
when you
academy.
so, sorry to interrupt you. I was just interested in when you were learning these things, and you said that they were kind of different, these plays. How did that make you feel? What was the thing? Was it redefining how you understood stuff around you, or?
Oh no, that's really interesting. No, I think what it was defining was what I had a passion for. I think what I realized was that I could be very funny. I could be very funny without realizing. I was learning a lot of stagecraft, but when I left drama school, I think my strength was comedy and was physical theatre.
Yeah.
And I left drama school and I met a juggler whose name was Tony Green. Then he became Tony Anthony. He was performing in Covent Garden, and we got together, and I thought, right, okay, I think I could do this. I want to create a show, and it was a wonderful platform to make a show.
Yeah, and just before we go on to you making your
Yeah.
show, when you went there for the first time, can you just build the environment? Give us an impression of what you saw and how it impacted you.
What, and Covent Garden?
Yeah.
It was. I don't think it was as busy as it is now, or was. You know, it only just opened, so it was the 80s. It would have been 83, 84 when I first started performing there. Probably 83. There was some interesting performers. I didn't find anything frightening. God, it was wonderfully exciting. There was Sid Rasputin. There was the jukebox man. There was, I think, oh gosh, do you know, the years tend to kind of get all mushed up together, but there was a lot of people just starting out on that platform.
It might seem like a weird question, but did it make sense to you when you went there? All these performers performing in a public square around all of these people. Did it seem like it was?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It made sense to the point that I wanted people to see what I could do, probably. It made sense that I wanted to entertain people. It made sense because I could express my creativity. Like, you know, you're painting a picture, you have an exhibition. I wanted to perform, so I created the show. And fully enough, the influences, as you said, what the influences I had was very much, you know, a mixture of everything I'd been through, and also very much that character was me. Underneath me is my other skin. So there, at Laban Dance School, we had this wonderful teacher who asked us to create a dance that was just in a small space, which was 2 foot by 2 foot, and that stuck in my head. So that's how my show started. I thought, right, I'm going to have a small space, and so that's a chair. The chair is a wonderful starting point for any show. The chair is empty. You leave it on the stage and you go off. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know if somebody's going to come and sit on the chair. You don't know if somebody's going to not come and sit on the chair. You don't know if they'll just stand behind it. You don't know what's going to happen. So it's like the empty space, like Peter Brook has written about the empty space. So the stage is an empty space, like a canvas. So it did start with very much a chair.
And did you sit and write it at home before you went out? Did you figure out what it was?
Funny enough, it was. Do you know? It's so hard to know how a show evolves. I very much on my own. I did. Initially, I used music. Eric Satie, Je ne peux dire. And I went into Covent Garden, and I used to watch these the robotic characters, you know, the and I thought, right, I'm going to do a take the piss character here, of a robotic character who, to Eric Je ne peux dire music, it's quite a sad kind of character that would get dressed, get drunk, fall over. This was her. Wine was going everywhere because because a robot couldn't drink the wine, so therefore it would go like this. So the wine would go everywhere. I mean, there was little jokey things. I thought, oh yeah, that's it. So I used the stiffness of the character to make the weird movements, and so that's how it evolved. And then I tried it in Covent Garden, and then I made two characters, the Patricia initially, and then there's a little girl who was very much dance based. So that was my show, which was probably just over half an hour, 40 minutes, because that's the time slot you got.
Yeah.
So that was all influenced by dance. And then in Covent Garden, music was banned. Music was banned. They said they didn't want music anymore. So I had to rethink my character, rethink my show.
Because everything was set to music at this point.
Everybody uses music. And the man I was with then, Tony Green, he would hate it. He was a very silent clown. A lot of people remember Tony Anthony. He was, he would walk on, say nothing, just stand and just be silent in there. He wouldn't be anybody who would use all these street performing kind of mechanics where he says, come on, come forward, come on. He wouldn't, nothing of that. You just stand and hope that their only initiative is to come forward, you know. I never used that. I used silence. I used the chair. But then I thought, well, I need to attract people. So I used my voice, not in shouting, but singing. I was trained by an opera singer at drama school. So I used my singing to create this absurd situation and putting my makeup on badly, because I was never somebody who wore makeup anyway. So this was like my other self all the time. And this got a crowd just by not contacting any of the audience, just by being like, I'm just getting on with my stuff. If you want to watch, you know.
Was it the same every time? Did you have a set progression of things to do? So the makeup comes out, this happens, and this happens, and this happens. Was it a set sequence, or was it more clowning and playful? And
oh, no, it was very, very set. I kind of really choreographed every single movement, even the putting on of the shoes. Every little movement was choreographed.
And that means you can ignore the audience then, I suppose, because nothing is needed by them. They can just, there could be nobody or 10
yeah.
people, and it doesn't matter. The piece functions.
That's right. So so I created an audience by just doing that, just being in the theatre. Because I mean, when you because of my probably drama training, you don't look at the audience when you're doing a play. You're in the character. So I was always in the character. But then there came a point where I clocked them, because it was street and I had to clock them. I had to bring them in. So so I clock them and then I bring them in. But initially, instead of calling them in, I used my voice and I used the total, you know, they're not there, I'm just getting on with my stuff type of thing. So that's how it happened. But it did evolve. And
how was it when you first started doing it? What was the first show like when the music had gone? So the music isn't there anymore. You've gone and tried to do your first show using the singing and this routine, developing the stream. What was that like? What was the experience of that like?
Oh, it was great. It was just
even the first time.
Yeah, it was liberating. It was just liberating, because what I can remember, I just totally enjoyed it. A total self-indulgence, because everybody as a street performer is self-indulgence, isn't it? Really, we're performing, and to get the round of applause at the end, and then talk to the audience as yourself, coming out of the character. I mean, I know I have total respect for so many street performers, because they've developed their shows for all those years and they're becoming so well established, and they're teaching, they're grounding their experience has all been on the street, and so many of them have done so well, and I just take my hat off to all of them. I just have so much respect for them. But no, my show, it was just different. It wasn't juggling. It wasn't mime. It was.
Were other people helpful? Was the community there helpful?
Pardon?
Was the community around you helpful when you were developing your work, or were you a bit of a lone wolf in terms of your development?
A bit of a lone wolf. Well, I started getting a lot of. I started doing alternative cabaret, and I started doing. I was at Edinburgh Fringe doing. I was in the Zap Club with Jerry Sadwick or whatever it is. I was alongside a lot of people. Yes, I felt very, very lonely and very vulnerable. I wouldn't say because I was a female I felt like that. I just felt on my own. I suppose, you know, a lot of actors, a lot of performers always need reassurance. I was used to the theatre. I'd been on stage, so it didn't scare me to actually go on stage. It was always the build up to going on. But so I used to do festivals, and I used to go off on my own, and it was a horrible feeling. Yeah, I did feel lonely. Yeah, very, very lonely. Very. Yeah, I did.
And did you feel, because you weren't a juggler and because you weren't engaging the medium in the same way everyone else did, that was the separator for you? You weren't in the same crew? Were you not in the same friends group? Did you not feel welcomed by them?
Oh, I see what you mean. The same group.
Yeah.
I mean, no. When I did shows and I was with groups of people, like I remember doing my favorite ever festival, and I always remind Matt Ricardo of it, when we went to Malta all together. I was the only female, but you know, it didn't matter. I was part of the band, and there was Dave Evans, Matt, Shandy, I've gone and forgot his name, beautiful trapeze artist, and Pete.
Oh, with that, yeah.
Polish Pete. In fact,
Malachek.
Yeah, I have to show you that. I found this
Wow,
today.
look at that.
It's Pete.
I mean, Pete.
No, that's Pete. No, that's
Pete looks about the same as he does now. I think Pete's a
yeah,
vampire. He hasn't
looks,
aged.
yeah. So Pete, and they were so protective of me over there. I was the only girl. But we did the International Independent Festival over there in Malta in a circus tent, and we created a show. And Matt had organised the whole thing. And no, I did always feel part of the groups. I did. When it was
that the same at the back of the pitch as well in Covent Garden? Because I know that
in
Covent Garden is well known for being very supportive, but potentially sometimes hostile to people. You know.
Yeah, you do. I did feel kind of cut off sometimes, but they were a family. There was a lot of them there, and I would have missed them so much. And when I finished, I didn't finish. I kind of went somewhere else, really. I lost contact with so many of the performers, which made me so sad. And then Facebook just opened the door up again, and there they all were. And funny enough, I couldn't believe it, because I remember beautiful Mike Howe. I don't know if you know Mike Howe.
I do know Mike Howe.
Yeah, Mike. He was desperately. He was trying to get me back to London to come and perform my show again. Matt Ricardo was, everybody was wondering where I was, and then suddenly there were on Facebook.
Well, it's wonderful how Facebook brings people together.
I
will say this: I'd like to drag us back a little bit just before we move on to get a little bit more information about Covent Garden when you were there, what it was like, what the place was like, what your experiences working there was like. How long did you work there? This time.
When I was there, I was there when I first was there in the 80s doing the music show, and then I did the.
So when you first go there in the 80s for the music show, what's the atmosphere of the pitch like? What are the people there?
The atmosphere. It was busy. It was busy. It got busy. I think you know what the feeling was. It was like just a discovery. People were discovering, wow, this is a performance space. This is actually really important. I mean, other people got involved, like there was a alternative arts. I don't know if anybody mentioned that before. There was
a fair few people have mentioned alternative arts.
And they started getting involved, which meant that they owned the space or whatever. And
how did that work out then?
People didn't like that, I was never part of the. I preferred being underneath the other side where the market was, not under
the indoor pitch.
The indoor pitch, because it was secure. Going out there on the cobbles, I didn't feel there was more of a theatre space there, but a lot of the performers preferred that area because it would get bigger crowds, and they did get bigger crowds. It was that was the place to be. But we performed a lot of it was great. It was the day when Christmas came. There was a couple of pantomimes that we would have done on the pitch, and all the performers would have grouped. There was rehearsals.
Why do you think people did the pantos? Because I've tried for years now to get the performers to do a panto again, and people are like, all right, well, they go, all right, you do it.
No.
And it's kind of like people aren't driven by the idea of doing something that, and not everyone's like this. I shouldn't tar everyone the same brush, but I get the sensation that people are doing a job and it's not part of the job. That's, I'm not paid overtime for that kind of thing,
Yeah, people just want to be. No, I mean, people aren't that selfish. I'm just in it for myself. I'm just doing this. I don't think.
But was there an environment of people loving the arts there and really passionate about creating interesting music arts? Was Was there something there, some magic in a bottle there that was going on at that time?
Yeah, they were creating something, and they're creating like a show. I mean, there was a lot of charity events and things that people were
And
involved.
who organised these things? Who was making this happen?
Do you know? Let me think. Well, I remember that there was Patty Webb. I don't know if you.
She was from Alternative Arts, right? If I remember correctly, Patty
Yeah,
Webb.
Patty Webb would have. You know, she would have kind of been quite a boss there and bossy, organised kind of things. She would have got things together.
And so was she integral with the performance for the panto then, as you remember it? Was she someone as a director maybe for panto?
Yeah, she would have been a choreographer initially. There were so many talented people there that could offer so much. I remember doing was it? Yeah, we did a pantomime at a theatre as well. All the street performers. And
and that was that Rob Ballard that wrote that? Rob and Eddie wrote it, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
Rob and Eddie wrote it.
Eddie Izzard wrote it, and I was I was the fairy godmother. Was I the fairy godmother? So I pretended I was a mafiosa godmother. So I had a stupid Italian accent because I am Italian. So I played that. I was.
So it's a play on words. The god.
Was I a fairy godmother? Was he? I can't remember. It was such a, it's play on words.
And was everyone just joining in for the fun of it? Were people doing it because they enjoyed it, not because they wanted money for it or they thought it was going to be a route? Or...
Exactly. Everybody was in it together. I mean, it was Eddie Izzard had written it with Rob Ballard. I can't remember. But it was full of street performers. Everybody had their role. Everybody had their role.
And was there when the amps were banned? I talked to Terry, and Terry had a feeling. His theory was that was when the musician performer divide really got created, where the musicians, the performers became two different clubs as opposed to being one group of buskers together.
Yeah. Sorry, say that again.
So when I talked to Terry Sinclair, Terry reckoned that when the amp band came in on the West Piazza, that caused the divide between the musicians and the musicians and the performers, which is still there to this day. They became two different groups, social groups almost, as opposed to being the same group.
Yeah. I see what you mean. Yeah, I mean there was always a bit of anxiety there, where there was musicians got their own little corner. You know, that's where they make their noise, and there was a lot of friction. Sometimes I sensed it, where performers would probably, the musicians were doing their music, and nobody could hear what the juggler was doing, or not that the juggler was making noise, but they'd have the distraction of the music in the background. So there was a bit of a separation sometimes, but you know, there were. I think when they came together to do the pantomimes and things, it was a great feeling. It was a great feeling because there was such a lovely grouping of talents there.
And when you were there, the entire time you were there, did that stay pretty constant? This desire for creativity, this inspiration by everyone to make something else apart from just the money show they're doing.
I don't know. I don't know if it did. I mean, people were pretty much money-minded. You know, they want to make their money during the day and go home or go and drink.
But they were still making pantos and doing charity shows and doing many of the things we don't do now.
But people, but I think people just love performing, and then they just wanted to be involved and get noticed and show off who they were. You know, if any opportunity to say, look, this is me here, I can do this. Brilliant. And also I was in a show that Rob Ballard, I know you've spoken to him. but
Yeah, we spoke a number of weeks ago.
Yeah, he's directed quite a lot of shows, but using the street performers as the performers in his plays I just thought was just great. It was just great because they were just so talented, so real. There's no pretense. That was them. And I was in one of the shows playing a guy. I played a guy in Three Men in a Boat with a moustache.
I remember Rob talking about Three Men in a Boat. I mean, I suppose one of the interesting things come up now when you said you played a guy, and it reminds me a little bit of Nola Ray's interview I did earlier on this week. And we talked about this a little bit before we came on. About being a lady and being a street entertainer and how potentially it's different than being a guy.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have the need to pretend I wasn't a female, and I didn't have to put a facade up saying I feel safer by being a guy. Because when I played the man in Three Men in a Boat, I got a proposition from one of the journalists who wanted to take me out to dinner. I mean, I never got that when I was playing female. There must be something. So, I mean, being a female on the piazza, being the show that I was doing was very, it was provocative. I was doing things that were very suggestive. And I was putting myself in a certain situation that was probably quite dangerous, but I never felt unsafe in Covent Garden at all.
Why did you never feel unsafe if you said yourself you're putting yourself in positions where perhaps you were vulnerable?
Yeah. Pardon?
You said that sometimes you were putting yourself in positions where perhaps you were vulnerable, but you never felt unsafe. And I was wondering, why do you feel so safe in that environment?
I suppose because I suppose I knew what to say or do, but there was only one position that I think a lot of street performers. Well, if we were mimes, if we were, I don't know, I was I did a physical street performer. I was a physical theatre mime based. So I would get asked to do different walkabout characters. You know how you. So I would use my character called Patricia, who's Patricia, as a walkabout character, who is this drunk, flirtatious, absurd, sad lady. I remember doing it at the British History Museum. There was a whole load of performers doing little walkabouts. I mean, from Covent Garden, we did get a lot of work through that.
And was that from alternative arts, or was that from people coming up to you on the street?
Or just having, I think, just through anything. People would just ask you, "Can you do this?" Not necessarily all through alternative arts. I remember doing it at the British History Museum, and I just thought I'd just sit there and put talcum powder all over myself and pretend I was just part of whatever was going on.
You're a statue.
I was just dusted, and I remember Cliff Richard was there. Cliff Richard, and he loved my character so much. He said, "Oh, can I have a photo taken with you?" So that was my claim to fame. I had my photo taken with Cliff Richard.
Well, you have more than it. We'll deal with some more of the stuff later on in the interview, but you have more than that as a claim to fame.
Yeah.
So when you're working in Covent, you're not working there now. You weren't working there, 20 years after. Why did you decide that you had enough of Covent? And when did you decide that?
I would cycle every day to Covent. Well, not nearly every day. I mean, I wouldn't go there early in the morning, not like a lot of street performers to put their names up. I would just kind of slot in when I could onto the performance pitch. I would arrive with my suitcase, as every performer arrived, and I do my show a couple of times. And I go off. I'd work in a wine bar in the evening to make more money. But I was finding it harder and harder. I was getting television work, I was getting theatre work, I was doing other things as well.
And so when you say you were finding it harder, did you mean you were finding it harder just because other things were coming into your life, or was the work itself becoming hard?
I think the work itself was getting hard. The show wasn't becoming, it was becoming worn out to do that show. I remember, I think it was at one of the Time Out festivals, which was you know, Andre Vincent just beat me by a couple of points in the clowning section, and the Time Out festival.
What is the Time Out Festival? Because we don't have it nowadays.
No, you didn't have it. It was a Time Out festival. I think it was a kind of Time Out festival. So all the rest of the performers would kill me if I get it wrong. But there was a festival every year, and I think it was the magazine Time Out in London.
Yeah.
They used
Time Out still exists.
Yeah, they would have run this festival every year, and there was different categories. There was the clowning, there was the jugglers, but whatever. There was just a unique piece. I don't know what theatre. I don't know. There were all different categories. So you were part. I think I went into the clowning, or I can't remember. And Andre went into that one. Anyway.
And so, did you do shows across the city, or were you?
Yeah, I did shows in. There was the city. I did on the South Bank.
For the Time Out Festival.
Well, the Time Out Festival was just in Covent. No, that was just Covent Garden. Sorry, that was just Covent Garden. And then the final. The guys who would win the whole thing would be on stage and they'd do their show. I remember the Two Marks. I don't remember a few Two Marks. The Mark Heap, who's very well established now as a very comic actor now in a lot of television shows. So many people have established.
And I take it that they were acts down there then.
There were acts down there. There were jugglers, unicyclists.
And you said something earlier which interested me. You said that you didn't just work Covent Garden. And a lot of street performers do just work Covent Garden. So were you working other places, other street pictures around London at the same time as working Covent Garden? Did
I do other shows somewhere else? Sorry.
Yeah, other pictures. Did you work other pictures? As I describe it now, did you go renegade?
Oh, right. I wasn't someone who'd go, right, I'm going to get up and I'm going to go and do a show on the South Bank today. I didn't do that, no. I'd wait to be asked to go and do a festival or something. So there was festivals on the South Bank. There was festivals in the City of London. I'd do festivals up north. I remember we used to go, I think I went for 3 years. We used to go to Terschelling. Has anybody mentioned Terschelling?
No, please tell me.
Oh, the fantastic festival in Terschelling. Again.
So first question, where's Terschelling?
In Holland. It was one of the little islands in Holland. And it's basically an enormous street festival. The whole island is just dedicated to shows, all from Russia, from all over the world.
Is it like a small island? Is it tiny houses?
It's a small island. It's a small island. You can get on your bike and you can cycle from one end to the other. So the first time I went with Pete.
Malachek?
Pete.
There you go.
The
eternal Pete.
The eternal Pete, my lovely Pete. He's the best. He's a great clown. Everybody went. There was Andre, there was Alex, there was Eddie Izzard. I remember Eddie Izzard going, and he did the show. I have a photograph of it. He did a show. He used to use, I can't remember what they were, but there's a photograph of these like tea cozies, teapot cozies, and they're penguins, and he's surrounded by these teapot cozies. I don't know what you call them. They're like you put them over teapots.
Yeah.
Tea,
Yeah, tea cozies. You're right, tea cozies.
yeah, they're all run up.
Yeah.
So, so just sharing, you know, and I would just, so there was a place where I just set up anywhere. I just did my show and got an enormous crowd. And I think I was the only female that went with a lot of, with Pete, Tony. Yeah, there weren't many.
Yeah.
I'm sure Eileen went as well, but.
Just before you, she might do. I have to re-go and check her interview, see if she spoke about it. How did this feel to you at the time? Then, before it's got too much, before you've gone and done a lot more theatre and television work, how did you feel about your life?
What, during this time?
Yeah.
Fantastic. There was a certain. I was doing what I loved, which was my show, but there comes a point where I think, how much further can I take this? And I think that's why I stopped, because I would either have had to make this into a theatre piece and perhaps take it off the street, you know, take it off festivals and become more theatrical.
And why did you, and I know this is fairly obvious, but just for the sake of eliciting the answer to hear it, why did you feel like the street wasn't enough? Why did you feel like you needed to take it to a theatre or to reform the work in a different medium? Was it because of economic earnings or status or potential? Or?
No, that's really interesting. That's really, really interesting that you should say that, because the street is a platform, and I felt there's nobody telling me what to do. There's no direction. There's no lights. There's nothing else except yourself there. You just get your stuff out there and you just put them on and you just do your show. With a theatre, it takes more. And I felt perhaps there should have been more of a story with my character, and it should be a longer theatrical piece. So I still haven't.
And you didn't. And you didn't. But the interesting thing for this, and it's interesting you still haven't done it. It speaks to everyone's dreams.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is, you didn't feel like that was possible on the street.
I didn't do it in the street. Is that what?
Yeah, but it sounds like you didn't feel like it was possible on the street.
Oh, right. No, because I think I would have had to set it up too much. It wouldn't have been getting their stuff out the suitcase and getting on with it. It wouldn't have felt a proper.
Would you feel like you needed to give a paragraph precursor for people before they watch the show to give context?
Yeah, I needed a bigger stage, probably, to, metaphorically. I needed a bigger stage perhaps to create it. And
so when you were having these feelings, sorry, carry on, please finish what you
saying. No, it's okay.
No. So as you're having these feelings, as you're thinking about this, it seems by the story you're telling that at the same time, theatre work starts coming in, television work, and things which are giving you a forum to work in these bigger mediums.
Yeah, I was getting, so I got, my first TV was The Bill.
Yeah.
Which was great. Played
and what was that? You played a what, sorry?
Played the rough character in The Bill, played the drug dealer in The Bill. And then after that,
did this have anything to do with you playing the fairy godmother?
I know.
That character.
Oh, I have to tell you something. All right. Okay. I was. I don't know how this lady saw my show, but I got a phone call saying that she'd seen my show. I think it probably was in Covent Garden, and she managed to get in contact with me, and she asked me to come and have an interview and a discussion about a future program for children, because she liked the physicality of my show. She liked the way I was basically physically.
As the song says, I like the way you move.
Yeah, it was pretty much like that, but she didn't say it in those kind of words. But so I says, yeah, okay. She said, well, come to the well, I can't remember where it was, in somewhere. So, and I met her, and this was Anne Wood. She's the director and producer, I think, of Teletubbies. Do you remember Teletubbies?
I do, yeah. Oh.
So there I was, sitting at this long table with all these characters and they were showing me pictures of what was going to happen in this new program called Teletubbies, these little hills and things. And she wanted me to be a Teletubby. So I was thinking, oh, she took me out to tea and everything. She said, I don't think you'd be really good as a Teletubby, because she just physically, she just thought I'd suit. This was about 93. So we've left Covent Garden to some extent now, 80s, 90s. I was in Covent Garden from the 84 to probably in the 90s there. The 93 was my cut-off point. I said, no, I don't want to be a Teletubby. So I could have been Poe. Anyway, it happened. And
but you had many TV bits. I mean, I know you played the bad guy in the bill.
Yeah.
You were in Bread as well.
I was a girlfriend in Bread. Yeah, one of the girlfriends of one of the characters, the poet. And then I was in One Foot in the Grave, and I did a lot of theatre work.
And were you doing like one-off bits in places, or did you have sustained
it was just
work?
Bits, but I would love to have. What happened was when I worked in a wine bar. I was still painting during this time. I was still painting characters. I was doing figurative work, and I was selling a lot of work in exhibitions. And I was working in the wine bar, and this beautiful man used to come in, and his name was Jeremy, and we met in the wine bar, and I went to his studio. He was an artist as well. His studio was in Brick Lane, very well established, but he had hit hard times, and he was living in it. He was living in his studio in a tent. When I met him, I decided, right, that's it. I'm just going to be with him, and I deserted everything. I went to Ireland. I came to Ireland, rather, married this beautiful man. We painted. He painted. He had exhibitions. He had a wonderful exhibition in London in 94. I met him in 93. And I felt I deserted my friends in London. I didn't desert anybody. I just suddenly closed the doors just slightly. I left it slightly ajar. I left the door slightly ajar, but
you were in love.
I was in love. And then, damn it, he died. He's 11 years ago now. He died, and I've been here in Northern Ireland since, bringing up my daughter. So I haven't done much except, well, I have done things. I've done drama workshops. I've tried to create shows here, but one wonderful thing happened. It was called Happy Days. The International Beckett Festival came here to Enniskillen because Samuel Beckett went to the school here in Enniskillen. So the artistic director decided to have the International Beckett's Festival here. And I was chatting to him, and I said, well, Beckett, you know, Waiting for Godot, the characters and Waiting for the clowns, the trousers, the hat. Look at your hat there behind you. You know, a lot of clowns come, you know, Beckett used, he loved his clowns. And I said, well, why don't we do a show with performers, you know? And so I reconnected with a lot of street performers again to the Samuel Beckett Festival. And we created a whole cabaret venue. I got Mike Howe over with his entourage. He did a little cabaret show there. I got Chris Lynham over. I got Daniel Rivet. I got Peta Lilly, who is wonderful. She's I don't. Do you know Peta Lilly?
No.
Oh, right. But she wouldn't be a part of the street performance, but she's very much a wonderful artist in mime. So who else did I get over? Oh, the men in coats. I got them all over, and it was just great to reconnect with everybody again. Even Paul Morocco. I was going to get Paul Morocco over as well, and he didn't quite work. Oh no, I was going to get loads. I was going to get them all back again. And then for the first time, I said, right, I'm going to do my show. So I got on that stage after 20 years. I got on that stage and I did my show again. And my daughter, who would have been, how old would she have been? 16 or something then, or you know, the time when they get embarrassed about their mum doing something. She just sat at the front and she was so proud. So I mean, the theatre was full of other performers, was full of academics as well. And that's the last time I did my show. But Mike Howe kept insisting to come over to London to do it again. And I still haven't created it to a theatre piece yet. Yeah, I mean, I think the street Covent Garden taught a lot. It teaches you a lot. It teaches you how to present yourself. It teaches a lot about stage presence. It teaches a lot about your own presence, about being so solid in the middle there on your own, to perform on your own. It's it's a wonderful feeling, but you've got to kind of feel so centered and strong.
You've got to know where you're going, I suppose.
And you've got to know where you're going. You've got to know where you're going, exactly. But
even if you're not sure where that is.
Yeah. So that, yeah. So that was the last time I did my show.
And do you long to do the show again? Is that something you're really thinking about? Are you still, committed to it?
I don't know. I think I'd like to get back to. Do you know, your head gets tired. And because I live so rurally, I'm very much on my own here. I think you need a certain kind of amount of inspiration, like a lot of things coming in. And when I left London, I kind of almost wanted things just to be normal. I said, I just want to be normal. I don't want to kind of. I don't want anything to be too hard anymore. You know, sometimes it was so hard.
And why was it? I mean, I know a lot of reasons why street shows are hard, but I'd like to hear them from you. Why did you find it hard? What were the things that were really tough about being a street performer?
I would find it hard because I think if you're so passionate about what you do, and things just get lost, because you do festivals, you do things, you don't want to keep proving yourself. You want you don't have to prove yourself. You just have to say that this is me. who I am. If you accept it, accept it. I can't say, oh, I'll try a bit more, or change it to suit you. I don't want to, you know. And sometimes I was a
And
bit
did
worried.
you feel like there was pressure for that?
Sorry.
Did you feel like there was pressure for that? That people were
Um.
expecting you to change in some way?
Uh. No. Yes and no. Because if you're going to be a street performer, I think that, as you know yourself, I think if you're going to make a living from, if you want to get money in, there's certain ways of doing it to kind of connect with the audience. I think with my show, it was much harder because I wasn't sticking to any of those kind of street performer kind of rules or whatever. I was just doing
Yeah.
the show. I was being a character.
Well, you didn't walk out there with a stock show built, which I suppose
Yeah,
wasn't there at the time, but maybe
yeah,
there was at least the precursor to that, which was knowing the right tricks, the cheers, the edges,
yeah.
this kind of thing, that kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah,
It was a different kind of thing. I mean, I used it as a different stagecraft, I suppose. Although, you know, my show, I did it in so I worked at the Zap Club in Edinburgh. You know, worked in loads of different alternative cabaret venues. It worked on the stage. It worked at the Circus Space. That's the YouTube film that you have.
that's the one I watched. Then that was at Circus Space.
The Circus Space, yeah, that was the Circus Space. With Charlie Holland had got
Yes.
me doing that one. And it was that empty chair again. I just love that feeling, just putting that chair there and going, right, nobody knows what's going to happen. I know what's going to happen. You know, and sometimes things like that would get lost in the street.
Very much so.
Yeah.
I've had people turn around to me and say, "You cannot do art on the street, so don't try." How do you feel about that then? Because that's kind of what you're verging on. That's the kind of inference there. Maybe not the extreme totality of the statement, but that's the beginning of that, maybe.
Yeah, sorry.
So people have told me before that you can't do art on the street, and what they
Oh, you
mean by that is
can't.
I think that you can't do big concepts on the street.
Right, but I mean, you can't. I mean, you can't. I mean, look at Commedia dell'arte. Look at the medieval times. People would have done anything in the street. They would, you know, they did those characters. Everything is, you know, street performing is ancient, isn't it? I mean, I'm not somebody who's an academic about it. I know people who have really studied this, you know, street performance back in the medieval almost. But
well, we do have Ollie Crick coming on in September. I think he's one of those chaps who's done that exact thing.
Yeah. He would have. Yeah, I knew Ollie. I think he did Commedia with Barry Grantham as well.
Yeah, he's as far as I'm aware, he's supposed to be a commedia expert, so to speak.
Oh right, is he? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh. So I've been told anyway.
Oh God, I don't know.
I'm just an idiot street performer. I don't know nothing.
Oh, you do. The thing is, the street. I mean, there's the street performers, and they say, "Well, you're a street performer. That's what you do." I mean, for instance, Tony Green, the boyfriend I had when I first came there to Covent Garden. As I said, he would stick to exactly what he wanted to do. You ask anybody that you've been interviewed about Tony, he would go on. And he didn't care if he made £3, he'd go home happy. He just wanted to show people that there was no need to shout. There was no need to have loud music. He would get very angry with people who played loud music, and he'd come in and he'd just be this very silent clown. He was a very clever clown. He didn't realize how clever he was. He was silent. He did the cigar boxes. The Unisite. I mean, he did the whole lot.
Why do you believe he was clever? What was clever about it?
Oh, clever. Yeah, it's probably the wrong. No, that's wrong. That's probably the wrong word. He was. He just didn't want to change for anybody. He didn't want to change for
Stubborn.
anybody.
He was stubborn, is what you mean.
He's a pretty stubborn person, but that was what he did. That's what he did.
And I think we need more of them, to be honest. We need more
Yeah.
people who are willing to stick to their guns, profit, and
Yeah, exactly.
celebration aside.
Yeah, this is what he. That's what he wanted to. He wouldn't change for anyone. He wouldn't say, right, I'm not getting an audience, so therefore I'm going to put loud music or I'm going to shout louder. I'm not going to change for anybody. I'm just going to do what I do. That's.
And
yeah.
do you have any words, any advice, anything you'd like to say for people who are beginning busking?
Beginning what? Street shows?
Yeah.
I think they should just do what they feel they want to do, who they are. There's no rules. There's no rules. I don't know what street performing is now, because I haven't done it for a while. I mean, when I go to Covent Garden, I kind of sneak through. I sneak through and see who's there. And I know there's quite a Brian's still there, and he's great.
I love Brian.
Brian's a great performer.
Why do you say he's a great performer? Why do you say he's a great performer?
Because he sticks to what he wants to do. He does that. I think him and Tony were probably quite similar in a way. I mean, I'm only looking at it from when I was there in the 80s, and early 90s. So I don't know what's happened now. I'm stuck in this kind of rural place now, so I don't know. But
so you've been to Covent Garden fairly recently. When I say fairly recently, like since 90, so 2000s,
yeah, 2000. Yeah, I walked through and I saw them still kind of warming up in the back there, getting ready. Right, I'm on now. Shake the wrist. Somebody's on. I've seen a couple of people go up there. I can't remember. I think Mike was there. I think Ozzy still going?
Ozzy's still around. He's still about. Yeah.
Ozzy.
And so, can I ask you this?
Yeah.
It seems to me like there was fire in a bottle in the 80s, the early 90s in Covent Garden. And it doesn't seem like that fire, as we've talked about earlier on in the conversation, is quite there as much now. And we've touched on this before, but I still want to try and delve, if I can, into why potentially you might theorise, hypothesise that there was fire in the bottle then and there isn't now.
You're echoing there a bit. Sorry.
Sorry. Yeah. So I'll make it shorter. It seems like it was very creative back then, and it seems like it's not creative as much now. It feels like people don't have the same passion they had then now.
Oh, right.
Do you have any idea why?
Yeah, I know. I think that too. But I'm not in a position to say that because I don't really know what's going on. I think perhaps people who were doing shows like mine perhaps have kept it to different venues. Perhaps they haven't seen it as something they could do in the street. It was great. I had my suitcase with all my stickers on. I was so proud. All my first shows were in Covent. Then I went to Ireland. Then I went all over the place, and there were stickers all over my suitcase. It suited the street somehow then, but perhaps people only see street performers as
what we'd imagine street performers are now.
The jugglers and the unicyclists and the I'm not degrading any of that, but
no, not at all.
That perhaps that's how people think a street performer is. I mean, there was just absurd shows. I mean, beautiful Sid Rasputin with his flippers on and his wetsuit. I mean, you know, Chris Lynham, what was he doing? I mean, Captain Keno just saying, look what I can do. I can go up a pillar and turn upside down. You know, wonderful kind of madness. Just madness that they can do something different. And that there was another guy. Oh God, what's his name? He used to he wore a bath hat, and the whole show was about him in his bath hat, and then going into. Perhaps I got to get wrong here.
It's okay. It's long ago now. Next to Nolan though.
But and then there was my friend. I mean, there was you're saying there weren't many females, but there was. I remember there was Chrissy, a Nickelodeon, who don't know. You ever heard of Nickelodeon?
Only the TV show.
Chrissy Illing, who is a fantastic performer, mime. She did all her shows out there with Mark, and now they're in Europe. There was Fluke, who was a magician, and she did this amazing dance magic act in Covent Garden. She didn't do come on now, come on, you know, blah 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 blah. She just did a show, and people would watch it without having to be enticed or. I suppose I didn't want to intimidate people by saying, "Come on, get a bit closer, get a bit closer." I just wanted to get, you know, I left it to them to judge whether they wanted to watch me or not, or to find out what I was going to do.
Which is a very different way to approach it than many people would take now. I suppose if you tried it now, potentially people on the pitch might turn around and say you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, you doing it wrong. So is there a rule now? Is there some kind of
It's not a rule, but what's quite interesting with what you said, and it's not a way I've ever looked at it before, but it's very interesting the way you put it, is that because I always looked at it as it's a force excluding. Whereas the way you described it is that maybe other artists go to the place and they see this formula, such a prevalent formula, that they see that as that's what street performance is. They see that as the only possibility of street performance. So it's the expectation of possibility maybe that's got smaller as opposed to the opportunity.
Yeah. They think. But then again, if that's the training that people want to have, but it can develop into something else. I think initially, perhaps you should have that training, and if there's any creativity in yourself, then it will go further, and you will have the confidence to do something probably different with it. So is it probably up to the individual performer? But what a beautiful platform to learn from. You know, on the street, it's just fantastic.
Yeah. Well, I'll say is Patricia. Is there anything else you'd like to say?
Just give my love to everybody. I miss them all. No, I think once you've got it inside you, that the performance, the theatre, it's quite hard to kind of put it aside. I think there's still something else inside that I want to do. So apart from
there's a yearning.
Yeah, I think I go into my studio and I paint. I sell my husband's paintings, or try to. He's left me with an enormous legacy of work, which is quite hard to deal with.
Well, when you say it's hard to deal with, why is it hard to deal with?
It's an emotional. It's an emotional thing. Because his paintings are him, it's not like a pair of socks that you have to put away at a charity shop. You know, these are actual works of art.
And do you feel reticent to sell them? Do you feel like you're giving a bit of him away if you sell them?
Sorry?
Do you feel reticent to sell them? Do you feel like you're giving a bit of him away
Oh,
if you sell them?
no. I Jeremy said just before he died that he'd left me these so that we could get on with our lives.
So it was a nest egg.
The nest egg, yeah. So, but you can't just sell a painting. So would you like to sell a? You know, you can't go on the street in Covent Garden and make a little.
Got these paintings, girl. If you want to buy a picture.
No, it's not like that. So, you know, it's a bit more serious than that. So that takes a lot of work. Yeah, I'm pretty much. I've been pretty much on my own for a very, very long time. But the thoughts of kind of performing again is still there. Yeah, I'd like to.
Well, I can tell you this now, and I know from people who've reached out to me before and when we posted that you were going to be making this interview, that your family's still there and they still think about you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Hey, no worries. So it seems like quite a natural point to reach the end of this interview. Patricia, it's been such a pleasure chatting with you. It really has.
Thank you so much. I feel very honoured to be here, and thank you, whoever remembered me, Melvin. Bless him.
More than Melvin, many people, and I'm sure they will all message you after. Patricia,
thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you. Okay.
My pleasure. And everyone who's been watching, I'm going to call you Whiners now. This is the new name I'm developing for the people who want the show, the Whiners. Hey, Whiners. Thank you for watching again.
Yeah, okay.
There you go.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for enjoying the show. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel, follow, like the Facebook, comment, engage with everything as much as it's humanly possible. And for now, I will say I love you all. Goodbye. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye. Is it this? Is it this or is it this?
I don't know.
Goodbye, everybody.
Yeah.
Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye.
Ciao, grazie. Buonanotte.
Ciao, grazie.